everybody. What is a universally unique identifier? It's something that gets generated so you can identify an item that's not really in reference to what the item title is or anything about the item in particular. It's just something that you can basically identify it uniquely, and everything is assigned this. The reason I bring this up is because I had a project a while back that I was using a couple of the primary keys were the ticket ID. The ticket ID is basically it's the title. And in the title, there's dates, there's the name of it, just a little bit of information just to identify this thing that was unique. However, within the functionality of the application, you can change the title. And in doing so, you have to go throughout everything and change it. Somewhere it is in some tables it's the primary key, some places it's not. I don't want to have to change that many things ultimately and depend on them all working out. And if the case is one of them doesn't, I literally lose out on what I was working on. There's no identifying what happened. So to avoid this problem, it's haphazard basically, so you want to avoid it. I'm going to create the UUID, and this is going to be something that's really kind of generated really fast and sent out, and this is how I will be identifying things many times over, as opposed to using the title. Now, some of them ultimately, that in these tables, it's not going to be an issue, but the places where it was, like here for instance, and over on the workflow table as well, that was going to be a problem. So yeah, you don't really... sometimes you don't need these things, but sometimes you do. This was a haphazard situation, and I needed to get it done. I needed to basically tackle this before it became a bigger problem, because that title, when I change it, could be a catastrophe. So, as you can see here, we've got a little bit of information, and it looks like I'm not the only one who's been doing these, so it's pretty common. And we're going back to this function here, which is something I grabbed a long time ago. And basically it just will generate on this kind of format what you want the ID to look like. And we can go off and running to look at some of the changes that I did to the old application. Now, first and foremost, I can go ahead and get this thing started up. And while we wait for that, I can go ahead and walk you through some of the changes. Now, this is the server side. As you can see here, let's go back and see how I got here. So within these routes, because nothing really changed on the server, but within these routes, I was ultimately asking them, go get everything with this title. And I don't want to rely on that anymore. So now you're going to see very commonly, go get it by its UUID. And at that point, you kind of see the changes that we've made. Let me see, kind of normal, typical look of our changes. As you can see here, UUID is now in there. UUID is being requested. UUID is where you're going to be looking for it on all of these. And it used to be the ticket ID, which would be something that would be changing, and it's volatile, it's haphazard, as I say. So UUID ultimately is now defining these items in a categorical manner. Okay, so here we are with one of the this is another server side. This is the workflow, and this is in the routes folder, and it's once again it went from ticket ID to UUID. Okay, so the next one is the ticket list. The ticket list is where you have the menu selection of whatever your tickets are. Now, the title still stays the same within, the user. That's what they see, but the value will be now, instead of using the ticket ID for the value, I'm using it here for the UUID will be something you identify. And so that will be fired off and at all requests. Now, one of the interesting things about the ticket builder is that once I build a ticket, I need to get everything prepared in a couple of other tables so that instead of, because they're not going to be able to create this UUID, they are ultimately kind of stuck with whatever's been created already. They have to wait for a ticket to be created before they can start. So one of the things about the ticket builder section of this is once you get a successful ticket created, you'll need to update invoices. And so that's what happens here. So as you can see, we've got the tickets, something's happened to it, we'll update the invoices right here, and it will all be happening over there. So this is another one, build workflow. So build workflow is something where you will set up build workflow. You pass it over what the ticket ID is and the name of the ticket, and it's going to create the initial setup in the workflow table. And then from there, when workflow comes around, you'll just be adding to this. So it already knows what the ticket ID and the UUID are. And so it's prepared for when you get to that section. All right, I just want to point out on the left, I want to have network selected within the inspecting tool. I'm going to log in here and you'll be able to see all those things on the left. That's basically under name, that's the UUID. That's how all the calls are being selected to identify, what invoice we're dealing with, what message we're talking about, what workflow and all the steps within the workflow. Everything is based on, and even the hours. All that is based on now using the Universally Unique Identifier as opposed to the title. So as you can see, it's working pretty efficiently. Everything is much more streamlined, and the chances of an accident happening are way less. I'm also storing the UUID and the title within session storage. So in case anything ever happens, it's kind of backed up as well there. Not that you have to. That's just kind of one of my habits that I typically do. This is something that I don't always use, like I said earlier, but I really do think that it can be useful at times. So I hope you've learned something here. Thanks.